Hello and happy day to you. And if you're listening to this live time, then happy May to you. I am so excited to be sitting down and recording this for you today. Hopefully I don't scare you away because it's that much excitement, especially if this is your first time listening. You might be like, okay, this is a lot. There has been some major stuff happening over here behind the scenes, and a lot of it has not been pretty, honestly. And I'm going to share some of it with you throughout the month, but suffice it to say, it's been one big learning opportunity after another. Yay, learning. That is what entrepreneurship is all about. Am I right? But I'm going to sort of set the scene for you come the month of May. Like I said, in case you're listening live time. This month, we're going to talk about the importance of intention and clarity and how these two play out in our business as a whole and also our marketing and our messaging. Because the fact of the matter is our words and our actions, they shape the world we live in, and they shape other people, and they impact and affect other people. And they're basically like door of opportunity or possibility one way or the other. So we want to choose them wisely. Also, May is birthday month on Content with Character, and also birthday month for me. 2 years ago, Content with Character came into the world like a babbling little wobbly baby, and here she is, 2 years old, no less babbly, no less wobbly, but having a lot of fun. So that counts for something. So my birthday plus Content with Character birthday, happy birthday to us and all my fantastic. After the last month, really after the last 4 months went down, I've started to kind of think about maybe changing the name and rebranding for a couple of reasons, but the primary one is that I want to talk about so much more than just content with you. And we do already, but I might want the name to actually reflect that. So thoughts are underway. In fact, I would stand by, I don't want people just out there generating more content and creating more content. I want it to be grounded and rooted in intention and clarity. So and that goes throughout your marketing. So I'm trying to kind of think of what name might reflect that. Thoughts are underway. I have yet to come to any definite conclusions there. But as always, I welcome your opinions and your thoughts. And maybe you like the name just fine and you're like, don't change anything. I don't like change. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of the day. It's not just a numbers game. We're going to get into 7 ways to make your message more impactful as we shift from a more mentality, what I was just talking about, to a more intentional, strategic mindset that is focused on the right people and the right actions, not just simple. Welcome to Content with Character, the weekly podcast that'll give you the momentum you need to create content with more ease, clarity, and laughter. I'm your host, content copywriter Emily Aborn, and I'm all about unconventional marketing approaches. I believe in your big ideas, and I'm excited to help you share them in a way that's distinctly you. Listen, I will be the first one to admit that more followers, more page views, more website traffic, more podcast guesting spots, it all sounds great in theory, but it is not always better. Sometimes it is just more. Sometimes it's just more. So today we're going to go beyond the numbers with podcast and the pitches behind that. We're also going to get into the right people versus the wrong people, and is more money really just more? And also how it's not even a numbers game when it comes to your SEO and your page views, the site visitors, and also when it comes to social media. So we're going to get into a whole bunch of things, how it is not just a numbers game. 7 ways to make your message more impactful. And we're just going to get right into it. So let's go beyond the numbers when it comes to podcast guesting and speaking engagements / how you're pitching yourself. So I recently shared, or maybe it was an email I wrote or a post. Anyway, I don't remember. But a couple months ago, I got a really bad pitch from someone I knew pitching their client to be. Had it been this show, that would have been one thing. I don't think everyone always realizes that I don't have guests on this show, but it wasn't even this show. It was they were pitching me to be on my former Sunsetted show, which anybody would know if you took 5 seconds and looked at the title of the last episode, which is titled The Last Episode. So it was bad. It was bad and generic and canned, and it didn't take into consideration the fact that, that show is no longer in existence. So when I wrote back, I was like, is this really them? Like maybe there was a scam. There's tons of like phishing stuff and all that going around right now. So I was a little confused and I'm like, is this really them? And in that same email, well, when they wrote back and they said, yes, it is us, I kind of expressed my disappointment in a little bit slimy, maybe wily. It was a little bit wily feeling of a pitch. So to that, they replied that pitching, podcast guest pitching, it is simply, quote unquote, a numbers game. Right. My thoughts exactly. Stop the turntables and say, what now? I am sorry, but it is not just a numbers game when it comes to podcast pitching. Yes, it most certainly helps to send more pitches. In my experience, about 1 out of 10 of your pitches go from an actual response to then ending up with you being booked on their show. And if you're doing it just cold, that is with no relationship built, I would say that's about average. But even if I were just throwing willy-nilly pitches out there, pitch after pitch after pitch, just hoping to play this numbers game, I wouldn't want it to be to podcasters that are completely misaligned, and or I wouldn't want it to be to podcasters that don't have an existing podcast. And as a podcaster on the receiving end, I don't like reading those generic, I clearly sprayed and prayed this cookie cutter pitches that some people think are worthy of sending. I mean, even with this show, I get pitched and I'm like, if you listened to even one episode, minus the April 1st one where I actually did have guests, you would know that I don't have guests. So nothing screams, I have not paid a single lick of attention to you, your audience, or your show than a cold, unaligned, unresearched pitch. And people so often think that mass outreach, appealing to everyone, just sending a bunch and hoping that someone bites is going to end up getting better results, but it really is just not the way to go. Last year, I was a guest on 50-something podcasts. There were a handful that were very, very good experiences, amazing collaborators. And those ones were going on to build bigger things or have more conversations or we stay connected or the conversations were just very highly relevant. But there were a handful of them. There were a couple that really were just not great fits. And it was on me. I had this senseless goal in my head of getting to 25 at the beginning of the year. And then once I got there, I was like, well, maybe double it to 50. So I kind of like lost sight of the right 25 or the right 50. And I just focused on that number, which is 50. It's also why I've totally changed my goal this year. I'm taking it at a much more slow and sustainable and intentional pace with my podcast guesting and pitching because I want to connect with the right people. I want to connect with the people I look forward to having conversations with. And I want every single conversation to be really valuable and really meaningful and aligned for their listeners. So if you want the most bang for your podcast guesting or speaking buck, you should focus on that too. And on that note, I wanted to offer 2 tips and resources when it comes to podcast pitching or speaking pitching with like more intention and more purpose. So resource number 1 is Podmatch. I've talked about it a million times, but Podmatch versus some of the free podcast Facebook groups that I've been a part of, it's really created a far more intentional pitching experience for me. And because of that, I've gone on to meet some really amazing people and collaborators through that platform. So I've included a link to Podmatch in the show notes. It is a paid service. And I do think that that is part of why people take it more seriously and intentionally, and part of why people are so engaged in the community there. Like when I'm pitching on Podmatch, I take time. I mean, I do this with any pitch, honestly, but I take time and tailor each and every single pitch to the podcaster I'm pitching to. I take a few minutes to listen to their episode, get a sense of them, get a sense of what they're all about. I know that it seems excessive, but I promise that it leads to far better, deeper, more impactful conversations and results on the other side. Resource number 2 is my podcaster bundles. Now, I'm not just blowing smoke up my own batuka here. These things are an incredible resource, okay? If you are serious about podcast guesting and podcast pitching or podcast hosting, I can help you with these bundles to make sense of your message, get an idea of your topics, come up with questions that hosts can ask you or you can ask your guests, bios, organizing all your pitches, all the written pieces, and so much more, like how you can actually strategically move forward with a repeatable system. And it's a lot. So if you want to check those out and read testimonials of people who have gotten the podcaster bundles and what their experience has been like, check out the show notes because I do have a link in there. I'm obsessed with offering these and doing them with people like a lot, because what I get to see is people getting results right away. And it truly is a ripple effect. I believe when your intentional messages reaches the right more ears, then it is winning all around. So tip number 2 for being more intentional when podcast guesting and pitching. Tip number 1, before you pitch, ask yourself, is this an aligned opportunity or is this just an available opportunity? If it's speaking or podcasting, you want to look at who the potential audience members are. You want to get a general sense of the host or the organizers. Know that it's going to be worth your time, money, and energy, and that you have value to add. Then, if all boxes tick yes, go forth and pitch. I used to say yes to like pretty much every single speaking engagement under the sun, every workshop opportunity that came my way. And now I'm far more intentional and set way more reasonable and intentional goals for myself. Tip number 2, I cannot stress the importance of personalization more, especially in today's times. Spare the people that you are pitching the ChatGPT siren emojis, the M dashes, the quote unquote no fluff, quote unquote authentic canned verbiage, and be yourself. Speak to them. Quality over mass volume will help you stand out. Fortune cookie cutter copy will not. Okay, let's get into number 2. It's not just a numbers game when it comes to saying yes to the wrong people, because more money is not just more money. So here's where one of my stories is going to come into play this month. I recently had a call with a client who found me through a Google search. Dream come true, right? Website traffic from all those years of hard SEO work. Lovely. During our discovery call, for lack of a better word, I could see that they were a really good personality fit, and I could also see that I could do what they wanted. But when it started to get underway, it became extremely evident to me, extremely fast, that they did not trust my process and me. And I ignored my gut sense at that point, the million red flags, which I'm doing a podcast episode about this month. And I made a few exceptions, and bada bing, bada boom, we were underway. And dear friend, my dear friend, do not be like me. Do not be like Emily. Do not say yes to the wrong people if you can help it. I needed and I wanted the money, just like the rest of us. It's tumultuous financial times out there, right? But nothing was worth what I went through in just the preliminary stages of the project alone. Eventually, it did end up in a burning dumpster fire, and I washed my hands of it, walked away. Unfortunately, this is not the first predicament like this I've gotten myself into this year. And it's all because I can see the writing on the wall, but I bypass it completely in lieu of more. Once you start learning who your ideal people are and who they're not, who your ideal collaborators are, your clients, your colleagues, stick to the right people. Stick to what your gut is telling you when someone doesn't match up with your vision, your mission, your values, or maybe that there's something off and you just can't figure out what. More is not always better when it comes to money, when it comes to clients, when it comes to projects. So these 3 experiences as of late have really got me reconsidering a lot. My messaging, my branding, making sure it's kind of not attracting people who don't meet those top 3 requirements for me: respect, trust, and delight. The right messaging is powerful, purposeful messaging. And then you let that do its job, but it's up to you to say no with clarity, yes with confidence to the right people, and trust your gut that when you do say no, you're not saying no to more. You're just saying no to something greater or better or more aligned for you waiting on the other side. More clients, more money, more leads, more projects. More is not always better. Sometimes it is just more. It's not a numbers game when it comes to clients and customers. It's about the right clients and customers for you. Okay, number 3, it's not just a numbers game, even when it comes to your SEO. And I know you're probably like, wait, but isn't the point of SEO numbers, Emily? And yes, you would be correct in that. And the whole purpose of SEO, keep this in mind. People are so confused about this often. The whole purpose of SEO is for humans. We're not trying to, of course, we need to appeal to the algorithms, but we're not trying to get algorithms on our site. We're not building relationships and connections with algorithms. We're building them to humans. And so keywords do matter. They matter a lot. All the math and the numbers and the strategy behind them are so that you can choose those proper keywords to help you find the right people for you, the right people that you want to your website. I alluded to it in a recent episode, but this is part of why I cannot stand when people who have no background in SEO think that they can just give ChatGPT an idea of what they do and use that as a place to get their quote unquote SEO keywords, especially when they haven't done any research past that. I also cannot stand when people try to cram like 60 quote unquote keywords into one blog. That's not how it works. And my list of things I can't stand in the SEO world go on. But I always say that SEO is an art and a science for a reason. It is the science of artfully bringing the right people to your website for the right reasons. It's not what the maximum people on the internet are looking up when they search. It's about the intention behind what they are searching. It's what they are really searching for when they are searching for you. Right eyeballs win over traffic every single day. And I would say the same goes for social media, which is why I love the power of specificity and prioritizing who you most want to read, engage, and stay on your website. I would rather you have a website with no SEO than SEO that has you answering the phone every 5 seconds, explaining yet again that you don't offer what people think you do. In the words of my friend Barb Davids from Compass Digital Strategies, more traffic does not always mean more success. What about conversions? And I think that's very, very relevant when it comes to our SEO. I have another quote from her, actually, that I'll be sharing in this episode as well. When we get into, on that same vein, it's not just a numbers game when it comes to your actual site visitors. Actual site visitors don't always equal clients. Getting traffic is fantastic, but what happens after they discover your site? Are they able to find clearly the next step? Is the copy so confusing and so generic that they don't even have any idea what you do, or they don't know who you're talking to? And this same thing goes for followers on social, people listening to your podcast, people downloading your podcast. It's all about the purposeful use of these platforms to speak to the people who most need you, not just anyone and everyone. Once again, in the words of Barb Davids of Compass Digital Strategies, more website traffic doesn't mean more leads. And I would say the exact thing about social media. So I'll give you a really tangible example. Let's say I'm a small business copywriter, which, oh, look, I am. And let's say I have some really popular blogs on topics like my gluten-free banana bread recipe, which is amazing, by the way. Or maybe I have a blog on a vacation that I took last summer in Maine. Or maybe I have a blog that helps people figure out which of the 4 love languages that they speak. The traffic that comes to my site from those topics, you can see how they're probably not looking for my copywriting services. Those are just more site visitors. Those are not going to be people that turn into clients. They're probably just going, getting the recipe, the vacation packing tips or spots in Maine to go visit, and moving on. So remember this, more isn't always better. More, even site visitors, isn't always better. But really intentional, speaking to the kind of site visitors that you want and helping them to see how they can become clients, that is usually better. Intentionality is usually better. Let's get into social. It is not just a numbers game when it comes to social media, especially with the way that algorithms are doing like loop-de-loops lately, which I'll share more about soon, I think. It can feel like you need to post more to get people to engage or to see your posts or whatever results you're looking for. More, right? More. I speak from experience because the more content I swear myself to push out, the more my quality ends up suffering, or my specificity ends up suffering, or the intentionality of what I'm sharing ends up suffering. So remember that quality over quantity always. Sometimes you can have both. I don't believe that there's any set formula, but don't fall into the trap of I should post X amount of times per day or X amount of times per week or whatever. If that sacrifices or diminishes your quality, your voice, the you in your content, and your intentionality. You also you don't always need to reinvent the wheel. Like, you don't always have to create more new content. Personally, after a decade of creating content, there's a lot of repurposing I could be doing at this point. So just keep that in mind. Evergreen content, it's still going to beat those daily posts that aren't relevant in 24 hours. Powerful content, thoughtful podcasts, blogs, emails, they do more than me sending 6 emails a week with completely unintentional babble, right? So more isn't always more. It's more intentionality in what you're doing. And I hate to say it, but this is a long game. It is a slow burn. So slow burn strategies, long-term solutions, those are often going to be the way to create that trust and build those relationships over time. In protection of yourself, content burnout is real, and I don't want you just creating more and producing more and generating more for more's sake, which is another reason I'm reconsidering the name of this podcast. Lastly, it is not just a numbers game when it comes to your words. So how can we say more with less? And do you want to know what's funny right now? I told you at the beginning of the episode that I had 7. I actually have 6. So see, there you go. It's not even a numbers game when it comes to me numbering the advice I give. As a writer, I'm often doing what I call, quote unquote, killing my darlings. Okay, that sounds horrible, but I didn't come up with the term. It's actually by William Faulkner. And it means to ruthlessly edit out even your favorite passages. Basically, taking out something that you wrote that you love, whether it be a sentence, a paragraph, a chapter, something that does not add up, but instead it ends up detracting and just being like noise, volume, quantity. Instead, we want to focus on not more, but clarity in our messaging, in our marketing efforts, in our words, in everything that we do. Now, I don't like to just personally pull my darlings out without giving them maybe a chance to come back to life down the road. Some of them really are just very precious to me. So if that is you too, what you can do with your ideas or your words that maybe you tried to jam in there, but you can't see how they really add any quality, they're just kind of detracting and being noise. You can save them in a separate document, and you can always refer back to them down the road when maybe they don't contribute value right now, but maybe down the road, they'll be something in and of themselves. So sometimes they come back into play, and I like to just put them aside and save them over there. I think often when we pare things back or we remove things or we simplify, we panic because we're like, oh my God, if I get rid of this, I can never bring it back. And in so many cases, that is just simply not true. But you have to kind of like regroup and figure out what your plan is going to be for putting it somewhere safe. But often you can't even determine whether or not you want it back or whether or not it needs to be there until you take it out and put it aside and give it some breathing room without it first. So if you want my quick and dirty, simple tips on brevity and ensuring more clarity in your message, which, believe me, I am working on right alongside you, I will be the first to admit it. I can be loquacious. They are these. Number 4 things. Start with a why now. Why now in your mind? So begin with that. Answer that question first and foremost. Why now? Number 2, why does it or why should it matter to them? So like I get the why now for you, but why should it matter to them? Number 3, use specific emotions and wording. Number 4, use your real conversational voice like I do with you. We don't want to be generic. We don't want to be like overly buttoned up or corporate. We want to sound like the people that we're trying to speak to actually talk. So when you speak specifically and with intention and you leave the rest out, you're going to increase your chances of making a lasting impression. Your message makes more of an imprint in their minds and lives because it's simple, it's understandable, it's real, right? So we covered a lot of ground today. Key takeaway is it is more than just a numbers game when it comes to your podcast guesting, speaking, and pitching, your money and clientele and projects. It is more than just a numbers game when it comes to your SEO. It is more than just a numbers game when it comes to your actual site visitors. It is more than just a numbers game when it comes to social media. And finally, it is more than just a numbers game when it comes to the amount of words you can jam pack into a Google document. So, key takeaway is this: when you are more intentional and aligned, the right people can find you and more easily identify as potentially working with you. The depth of connection is going to exceed the numbers of exposure every single time. And we don't need more words. We don't need more pitches. We don't need more clients and projects. We need more meaningful ones. So, if you would like help with any of this, please do not ever hesitate to reach out. I love chatting with you and helping you bring more of an impact to your business and really reaching your goals with intention and also clarity. So all the links to connect with me are in the show notes. And on that note, I will chat with you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.